Hey, good morning, friends. It's Josh here. Welcome back to Morning Meditations and part two of our study of Gideon. We're doing a Judges series this week, and last week in part one of Gideon, or yesterday rather, part one of Gideon, we highlighted the fact that there's sometimes people don't believe in God or they have trouble, with theology, Christian theology in particular, and they want to, point out these things about how God doesn't show up or God isn't around, and the point we made yesterday was that God turned right back to Gideon after Gideon said, "Oh please," right? Like, "Oh please, really, God? Like, you expect me to believe in all this when you've left us to this terrible situation?" And God said, "You have power." Now we're picking up right after that. So the Lord said, "You have power, you have strength. Go and rescue Israel from the power of Midian. Am I not personally sending you?" In other words, am I not with you? Am I not empowering you to do this? Now, this is interesting how Gideon responds. He says, "But again, Gideon said to him, 'With all due respect, my Lord, how can I rescue Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the youngest in my household.'" So we can see that Gideon doesn't have a whole lot of confidence, right? He's coming from a place of being kicked. His whole nation has been marauded and beaten down and forced to live in these cliff sides. And now all of a sudden God shows up and is empowering him to do these things to rescue the nation. And he is stuck in his beaten mentality, right? I'm from the weakest tribe and I'm the youngest one and I can't do this. Surely you must be mistaken. And the Lord replied, "Because I am with you, you'll defeat the Midianites as if they were just one person." And then we get into this kind of back and forth with Gideon and God and the messenger of God. And Gideon's like, "Look, show me a sign. Like, you got to do me this favor. I mean, with all due respect, I just can't grasp it. Please give me a sign. And just wait here. I think I'm starting to believe. Just wait here until I get back." And he cooks this supper for the Lord's messenger. He prepares a goat and some unleavened bread, and he brings it to the messenger. And the messenger basically responds to his request by saying, "Okay, put that food over here on the rock." He touches it with his staff, and it's immediately engulfed in flames. And Gideon kind of has this aha moment, like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I've definitely seen a messenger of the Lord. I believe you. This is intense," right? And so God gives him these further instructions. He says, "You need to go and tear down the altar of Baal and chop down the Asherah poles that exist." Basically, the symbolic representation that the nation has strayed completely away from me and gone after these other gods, which I told you from the beginning to get rid of. And in order to do that, you needed to drive out the people who inhabited the land of Canaan, but you didn't listen to me. You didn't do that. And now everything that I feared was going to happen for you is happening. So he says, "Go and tear down the altar, chop down the Asherah pole, take two bulls, sacrifice one of them on the altar." And so Gideon does all this, right? And the men of the village wake up the next day and they're looking around, surveying, the damage and the destruction of the old altar and the Asherah pole and this new altar that's been constructed and this freshly smoldering sacrifice that Gideon made with the second bull to God, the God of Israel. And they're exclaiming, "Who has done this? Who has done this?" "It was Gideon. Gideon did this. Go get that guy so we can kill him." And Gideon's dad stands up for his son, and he says to the people, "If Baal is the god, then why do you feel the need to defend him?" Sort of like the point that I made yesterday, right? God doesn't need defending. So he's saying, let Baal defend himself. Let Baal defend himself. Now, we'll stop there for this piece, but I want to highlight a couple things. One, the fact that, like Gideon, people can develop a mentality that they're not good enough. If they're oppressed and down and out for long enough, And if they're told that they're weak, if they're told that they are no good, if they're told that they are second class and that they're never going to amount to anything, they start to believe it. They start to believe it, even when it's not true. Even when a person has great potential that can be seen from people from the outside looking in, if the person has been down and out and kicked long enough, they're going to start to realize, they're going to start to believe that they're worthless, that they don't have any worth. And this is where this whole symbolic exchange really comes alive for us, because God says to Gideon, I am with you. Because I am with you, you will be able to do all that I am calling you to do. And it starts with taking one step. In Gideon's case, it was looking back at the damage that was done by worshiping these other gods and tearing down those idols, right? Tearing down those things that separated God's people from God. And so what might we be able to learn from that example? God goes to the people who have such little self-worth. He goes to all people. God is continuously revealing God's self to people in many, many different ways. But the hope for those who, like Gideon, are down and out and don't think they have a chance in the world, don't think that they're good enough, don't think that they have any self-value or self-worth, God goes to the people, sometimes through messengers, sometimes through other people, sometimes through his angels, sometimes in his own way, in his self, and says, you have power. I believe in you. I'm calling you to much more in life. And because I am with you, you will be able to achieve all that I am calling you to do. Because I see the beauty and the potential in you, even when you don't see it in yourself. And we might respond like Gideon, right? We might doubt. We might have that same response of, I want to believe. Just show me a sign. Will you just show me a sign? And when you pray that prayer, it's amazing what happens, because when you ask for a sign usually shows up. It may not come in the same kind of thinking that the same sign or idea that you're thinking, but the sign will come. Trust me on that one. And then that's kind of like the affirmation. God says, okay, I'm calling you. You responded. You asked for a sign. I gave you a sign. Now it's time for you to take the next step. And in the case of people who doubt God, or doubt the existence of Christ, or doubt that God loves humanity, the first step is sometimes recognizing the thing that is keeping you, like the nation of Israel, from God is like these other things that you worship, right? Or these things that are just unhealthy in your life. Maybe that first step is tearing those barriers down, tearing those things down so that it can clear the path for your connection, your spiritual connection with God. And I think we'll stop there with those sentiments, because those are all good things to process. Like I said yesterday, this is a really rich study of this particular judge, and it's deep. So we're going to spend maybe another day or two in Gideon, but just consider those things, guys. Consider all that, and as always, let me know what you think. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.